Okay, so when we're struggling with uncertainty, stress, imbalance, burnout, right? One of the things that always seems to hit us, or where the areas it hits us is in relationships, right? So remember, relational success is our family, our friends, and our romance areas, right? And these strategies for addressing those areas are really all about enhancing the depth and the meaning within those relationships. So the first thing we really need to do, or strategy we suggest, and we mentioned this before, is just checking on the health of your circle.
Yeah.
Because if your team isn't tight, if you don't have folks in your circle that are aligned with you the way they should be, then many of the other suggestions we have about leveling up in those relationships wouldn't apply.
Yeah.
So remember, we talked before about checking in to see, when you're laughing, who do you laugh with? When you're doing your best, who's in the front row and who's the first one to wish you well and cheer for your success? Who's the person who, no matter what's going on, no matter how they're feeling, they come through, they support you, right? So that in and of itself needs to be done, because if you've got folks in your circle who really aren't or shouldn't be in your circle, then the work would be to be reevaluating your circle, right? And that would be the strategy that you need to work on. But assuming, Amber, that the folks in your circle are who they should be, and you have a good circle, let's talk about boundaries. We've mentioned it quite a bit. How does that play into embodied self-care strategies and work-life harmony strategies as it relates to making sure we're doing well in the area of relational success?
Well, first, it's just defining what that looks like, right? And setting some healthy boundaries and being able to maintain that. And so that sometimes you're just negotiating and renegotiating based on what's happening in life, right? And who's in your life, just like you were talking about. And sometimes that's you have to say, guess what? No. You got to say no. And what that does is say yes to you sometimes. So, and then set clear and realistic expectations with your relationships, right? And you want to be able to communicate that. You can set these expectations and then don't say nothing about it. And then that's going to be a problem. So making sure that you also communicate that is so detrimental, actually, in this phase, and really, setting those boundaries.
So let's go back for a second, because I think, we're not going to do a whole training here, but because this is a whole, right?
Yes.
Boundaries is a whole thing. But I do want to kind of give some examples, because, like, for example, let's say you're a caregiver, you're taking care of your parents, or one of your parents, they're ill, right? I know a lot of folks who just aren't doing well. They are not doing any self-care because they're fully taking care of their parent all the time. And some of y'all are going to feel really funky when we say, yeah, so can't be doing that 24/7 and expect to be well, but you can't, right? So, I'm even thinking about my Nana's 100th birthday happens to be tomorrow. And, we've had these conversations within my family, and specifically with my mom, who's kind of like the go-to about, like, yeah, we want the best for Nana, but, like, sometimes it isn't about getting the very, very, very best. It's make sure she's good, which, may not be everything you would hope for her, but, you also need to take care of yourself. So I want to just kind of kick around some of those examples when Amber's saying renegotiate and negotiating. Sometimes it's saying no to others. Sometimes saying no to yourself, because you're the one who's doing too much as it relates to. And this I've seen where folks, everybody's coming to me. But if you look close, actually, they're not. That's you that's signing up. We just talked about this with you, like with your family. Sometimes it's not that they're asking, it's you saying you're supposed to be the elder, and what does this mean? Yeah. So just want to pause there. I know we're not going to go hard on boundaries here, because, again, we could be here for hours. But just want to kind of give you some examples of what that means. And I do want to just note that in setting these boundaries and having all this happen, ideally folks get it and they lean in and they meet you where you are. But sometimes that does mean that when I going back to check the health of your circle, if you're setting boundaries and you're doing these things to make sure you're well and folks aren't responding well, that might mean that some folks might not qualify to still be in the circle, or maybe just not in the way that they've been, because you're starting to see signs that they aren't cheering when you're doing well, or they're not there to support you. What's another one? I know we talk about boundaries, like, but how do we lean in when it is good?
Well, first off, we are definitely beings that need other beings, right? So it's non-negotiable, right? Relationships are non-negotiable. We need them, right? So
like we need them, like we need food,
yes,
water.
we need
like
them.
In real life. There's research on that if you want to look it up.
So really making that commitment and be intentional about the relationships that in that inner circle that are important to you, right? Celebrating, making memories, being in that present moment when you are with them. It's not about the quantity of time, right? Sometimes it's like, but if you're not doing quality time, so making sure that you're doing that is huge, because it fills you. That's what, like I said, we've talked about embodied self-care is really looking at what do I need. So when I'm needing to be in my social circle or with my family or with my significant other, then I need to be intentional about that time.
Yeah.
Intentional about that time.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of that in the professional sphere, but that can be tricky, because sometimes we're saying, we want really great relationships, but we're also saying, I really want to meet all of these goals I have professionally or for my business. And, at some point, it can't be all. So we're going to get to that in the professional one, but good call on that. The last suggestion we would have as a potential strategy for good balance and harmony and embodied self-care in this sphere is, maybe just you need to meet new people to enhance your social circle, especially if our first suggestion of checking the healthier circle landed on you need to clear house.
I kicked everybody out. Now
Because for real, sometimes people are keeping the same social circle they have because it's all they got.
Yeah.
And actually, I just worked on this with a client last week. It's like, well, that's who's always there. So they're convenient, but they're not necessarily good. But then this person also struggles with getting out and being social. We're like, we got to, and for her, it wasn't so much that the people were toxic or not good, but their life situations had changed. So they, got married recently or had a kid. And so the amount of time they were spending together was less. And therefore, what that relationship was doing for her in the past isn't what it's doing now.
Yeah.
So it isn't even necessarily either or we keeping them or we not, but they just might not be able to be for you what they've been. And so you might just need to expand your circle a bit. Again, these are just general suggestions. This is not a roadmap per se, just some things to think about. Again, check out our webinars and some of our other stuff to get some other suggestions for how you can do better and level up as it relates to well-being in the area of relationships.